Hey everybody, just going to do a short video today on more airplanes of World War I. And today we've got a Roland C-11. This is from the Heller Model Company out of France, 1/72nd scale. So it's going to be another small plane. This is the D7 that we worked on last time. And it's finished up now. Did it in a single color white. I think we were talking about that, which isn't bad. Just doing it single color. So the advantages with that, since this one was already molded in white, makes that a lot simpler. So if you were doing this with your kids, you know, that's a good possibility to just stick with the color of the plastic. The other color schemes were very colorful, which you could certainly do. But I did find there were some tricky parts trying to do some of the touch-ups and painting things underneath this wing were kind of hard because it was hard to get an example. It's kind of hard, say, to get the brush underneath all of that to do anything, right? So things to think about. So when I started working on the, well, I haven't done much with the Roland, but I decided with the Roland it might be good to paint some of this stuff before I put it together. Just because with this one it was so hard to get under the wing with a paintbrush that I thought maybe I could solve that problem by doing some of the painting first. You see, this has got a few options. Well, actually it's got one option. I decided to go on the internet and look at other color schemes. I'm a big fan of this purple green color with the blue undersides. I kind of like that because it's just so strange looking. You know, I'm just a sucker for the strange stuff. But the Roland really just has a like a light bluish, blue-gray color, which was the color of the plastic. So that wouldn't be difficult to do in theory with your kids. But I'm going to see how this actually goes together. The instruction sheet on this one, I kind of like the way this is looking. I got to see how it goes together, but I think the diagrams are nicely laid out on this sheet. They're big enough to see. The colors and the color coding is helpful, even, you know, without the need for language. Because this is probably sold to many languages. Yeah, it is. There's a whole bunch of, wow, a lot of languages you could look at here for this one. So I think the instructions are very nicely laid out. And let me get up there. If you notice on this, which is helpful, so it's got a little yellow glue tube here. So where it's got the yellow highlights is where it's suggesting the glue should go. And that's kind of handy. So let's see how this goes. Yeah, because it shows where the glue goes on every yellow highlighted step. So that's neat. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to try to get started on this. I can find all the parts and everything here. So this one starts by putting the windows in the side of the plane. So I gathered the Roland was kind of a multifunctional aircraft. So it could be a fighter, and it could be an observation plane as well, because it's got these big windows on the side so they can see. And I've noticed looking at the internet that it just seems like a weird concept, but apparently the windows on the sides of the airplanes often came with curtains. So, which, hey, flying in style, right? But yeah, it was an interesting airplane. I believe it's from the middle of World War I. I'm guessing, I don't know what it says on the side here, but I think it was like 1916, I think was when this came out. Does it give me any information here on it? Yeah. It's a two-seater fighter plane. And it was nicknamed the Whale because it's got a weird look to it, which maybe you'll see that more when we get it together. So let me just get started on some parts here, just to get an idea what's happening. So I'm going to start putting in some windows. And then I'll get the crew inside, and then we'll kind of go from there, I think. All right. Let's see if these are numbered. No, they're not. All right, well, let's just experiment and see how these windows go on there. So Heller is a decent model company. Not always the easiest stuff to find locally, but you can certainly get this stuff online. Usually at a reasonable price. This one I did find at a shop a while back. And I bought it because it was such a strange looking airplane that I just had to see what this thing was. And I'm hoping that this might be an easier model kit to put together because of the way the wings are laid out on this. Which I'll show you in the diagram in just a second here as I get this other window in. I think the parts might not be too badly laid out on these trees, that you may be able to cut them off with the wire cutters. I'm finding the windows are kind of tightly on this little sprue here, so it might be, well, no, you probably could get that with a wire cutter, actually. Let me see if I can maneuver in there. Yeah, kind of. It's a bit of a tight fit. So I'll continue to use this blade on this. But, you know, you might be able to twist these off with your fingers, too. So I'm trying to look at how child-friendly this model is. That's something we'll figure out as we go along here. Because I managed to build a number of these small planes when I was young. Well, maybe 12-ish, I'm guessing, but I had some experience building models prior to starting some of these World War I planes. But so far this isn't too bad, but then I'm only, what, 3 pieces in? So, how will we know, right? Because for those of you that watched me build the D7, you may remember it going together so nicely until I put the top wing on, and then things got a little hairy at that point. I'm hoping this is going to avoid that, because the construction, how they did the wing on the Roland is very different. So, okay. So the wing on the Roland, it's actually sitting on the top of the fuselage, so it's not dangling or being supported with struts above. So you see at the top of the plane where he's sitting, he's level with the wing on this one. So it's a very strange design. Then the body's here and the other wing is down below. So I'm thinking, because of this setup, and I think there's only one strut on both sides of the wing here, this might be a lot easier to do. But let's see what we got here. Next part, we're going to start putting together things that go inside the fuselage as a pilot and a seat, a couple engine pieces, and the propeller. Now, like the other plane, the D7, we get the propeller and there's a little stopping thing behind it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But in order for it to spin, you glue a like a retaining disc to hold it in place without the need to glue this thing on, so you can get it to move. So let me take a look at, although it looks like they molded that very badly. No, maybe that's not the right part. Let me keep looking to see if I can find the proper piece. So far, no, it's a seat. I'm not finding that part yet. Oh, that must be it here. Is there a parts diagram or something? All right, there is. Oops, making a mess over here. As you can see, I've been pretty busy down here. Kind of keep working and keep making videos. Okay, there it is. So I found it. So let's try to get that lined up. Fit in. Yeah, that will fit. All right. Not sure. That needs sanding. A little bit. A little bit of sanding there, and a little drop of glue in the back. Not much. Just enough to grab it. Okay. Put it into the fuselage here, and then tighten it so I get the right angle on it. Oops. All right, let me get the pilot and then the chair, and then there's an engine part. Let's get some of these pieces together. There's a great big engine here. Actually, it is a pretty large engine. It's one thing that surprises me in some of these early aircraft is they have these enormous engines. And since it's got such a light kite-like frame, I often wondered how on earth they got these things to get off the ground. We've got such a massive engine and such a small wooden and cloth frame, how it possibly could lift. But it did. Somehow it worked. And number 10 is the other part of the engine. No, just this piece here. See, that's an extra piece. It's molded on, doesn't need to be there. Sometimes you get those little pieces of plastic that are leftovers from the molding process that are really not supposed to be on the model. I'll try to look for one in a moment to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's get this port. It's got some slightly pronounced seams when it left the molding at the factory. This is a because what happens to knock the pieces out of the mold, they have what they call ejector pins that kind of hit it and push the parts out, and sometimes that ejector pin leaves a round circular blob on the part. Let's see how that's supposed to go. It's a little strange. It's a really big exhaust pipe. Okay, well, it's a big exhaust pipe. Who am I to judge, right? Goes like this. Yeah, come on. Yeah, like that, I guess. Yeah. Alrighty. Funny, I thought the connecting part for the exhaust pipe was the exhaust pipe, but this has a really large exhaust system. Makes me wonder how powerful this engine was. All right, that's a big beast. A beast of an engine. Let's get this pilot. As you can see, I painted the crew already, and they're kind of nicely molded. There's a lot more detail to these guys than some of the other models I've seen, so that's not a bad looking crew. All right, this is a wire cut a moment. And I like the poses on these figures. They're not just kind of sitting there like lumps going, which so many models have them doing that. If you build a few model airplanes, you know what I'm talking about. You always get the guy in the cockpit like... Anyway, it's a minor complaint, but hey. very few of the pilots in these kits ever have any sort of expression on them or anything going on. There are model builders out there that just don't even bother with the figures because they think they look so bad. Just leave the plane empty. And of course, it's always your choice what you want to do with yours, if you want the crew in there or not. Always up to you, because it's your model and it's your world it's living in, right? So you do what you want with it. Okay, let's see if I can get him to sit in this seat. Okay, no. All right, he's in the chair. So I'm only going to put the fuselage half together. I'm going to call it a day there because I don't want to keep you guys kind of hanging on too long. And I'll let you know how this thing goes together, but I think it looks good to me at this stage here. You see what I'm talking about? And you got a little machine gun mounted up top with a support cage. And we've got a message. All right. I'll probably wind this down right about here then, since it's kind of screaming at me. But as you can see, it's only got the 2 braces, and they're pretty good size that lock the top to the bottom. So I have a good feeling about this, and I'll let you know if I'm right. We'll see how this goes. Okay, folks, and that's what this one's looking like. And again, here's how the last ones came out. The D7, simple white, but not bad, right? All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.